Underneath the unforgiving fluorescence of Dottie's diner, Joan shimmered. Her uniform gleamed white, pressed sharply, a pristine canvas stretched across her figure. Each precise movement, taking orders, refilling coffee, flipping burgers, was rehearsed, a performance perfected through years of practice. The worn linoleum floor, sticky from yesterday's spills, yielded slightly underfoot, an echo of discontent brushing against her polished facade. She smiled, bright as the neon sign outside, commanding the evening crowd like a conductor raised before an orchestra. But the warmth in her eyes, a mixture of earthy brown and muddy gold, betrayed the rift that lay within. Every smile was a mask stifling an identity long foregone. "The regular, Joan," croaked Frank at the far end of the counter, his voice thick and raspy, scraping against her ears like sandpaper. She met him with the same practiced cheer. "Coming right up." He was just another weary soul, a fixture that bore the weight of the diner's scent, a concoction of greasy fries and burnt coffee. Too familiar. His soon-to-be empty plate formed under the weight of her pretense. Her days were built on these simple exchanges, each interaction layered with the same smudged comfort. Joan's fingers danced over the edges of the ceramic dishes, just a hint of tremor breaking through, before she steadied them, quelling the storm in her chest. She could almost hear the echoes of her past, calls from people once important, gestures she longed to make but tucked away deep like faded photographs, laughter lost in memory. She passed a table full of laughing teens, yet even their joy seemed hollow against the backdrop of her silent betrayal, the life she embraced a dim mirror to a shadow now cast away. Dottie had a way of disciplining ambition. She'd taught Joan to wear her role like armor. "You want a legacy? You've got to erase the past," was her old battle cry, a sordid philosophy Joan had swallowed along with her dreams. Today, it twisted, cold as the autumn air, reminding her of what should have been. Later that evening, as the waning light succumbed to dusk, Joan noticed Liz, a new waitress, straining under the weight of her own uncertainty. The girl stumbled, balancing a fresh order while her fingers fumbled with a pencil, the stubborn smudge on her order pad a testament to her anxiety. Joan shot her a dismissive glance, a sharp retort clamoring on the tip of her tongue. "Get it together, Liz. You want the customers to leave happy or flustered?" The words dripped with a sugary edge, a weapon disguised as concern. Stung, Liz's lips parted as if to protest, but the sound caught in her throat, extinguished by inexperience. Instead, she nodded, her eyes downcast, a tiny fawn in Joan's path, oblivious to the lioness prowling nearby. That moment, though weighty, slipped past Joan unacknowledged, an infant bruise on her indifference. Later, in a moment of clearer headspace, the familiar face of Frank returned after his solitary drink. His eyes held a secret, a burden unshared. "You know, I used to be a cop," he confessed in his rasp, his voice sinking below the surface of banter. "You've got your heart in the right place, Joan. Just watch who you step on." She flicked her gaze at him, a fleeting, dull flash of anger spiraled inside her, a self-justifying contempt for weakness. Little did he know how dangerously hollowed the heart beneath her veneer. As the day's orders dwindled and knees began to buckle against fatigue, Joan found herself cleaning the counter. In a deliberate action rooted in muscle memory, she dug into her apron pocket, retrieving the crinkled edges of an old, discarded order. It belonged to a table of affluent patrons from earlier in the evening, who laughed raucously as they criticized the service, leaving behind a tip that barely reflected their lavish lifestyles. One discarded bill, half lost beneath the countertop, caught her attention. The scrawled handwriting, half-formed letters, a breadcrumb trail of humanity, represented something she had long dismissed: generosity or fragility. But as is often the case when faced with past choices, Joan shoved it back into the dark recesses of her mind. After all, lifting others only meant diminishing her own established success. Time shifted when a shout shattered the brittle tension in the air. A pair of men burst through the door, faces flushed with urgency, rapidly closing the distance toward the counter. In that swift moment, recognition dawned on Joan, not of their faces, but the elegant watch wrapped snug around the wrist of one. It was a Hallmark piece, glinting in the fluorescent light, belonging to a man known for the wrong reasons, his legacy flushed with unmentionable crimes, the kind that linger like shadows against walls of untidy lives. And there it was, a lifeline tangled in regrets. One of the men leaned close, his breath reeking of desperation. "Where's Frank?" The air thickened, rendering Joan immobile, as if caught in a blizzard, but the chill ran deeper as time threatened to freeze, echoing the moment when she too might break from the irreplicable pressure. "Wait, just a moment," she murmured, the improper concern sharp and false against her tongue. The damning illumination of their loss loomed large. There was something here she sensed but did not quite grasp. Her heart thundered in syncopation with the moment the darkness of her choices drew the looming curtain upon everyone she took along. With the men escalating their fury, Joan found herself retreating within, agonizing over choices from years past, while somewhere beneath the din of desperation lay a practiced solution. She turned, scrambling into the kitchen, an impulse to don a mask for the last time. Trapped in the anonymity of faded roles, she exhaled, standing taut against the cold steel of the kitchen knives, mere tools lying burdened with potential. She could keep the shadows where they belonged, bury the truth behind a legacy etched within fate. Later, Joan pressed the entrance door on her way home, her reflection flickering against the glass. Sighting herself was a jolt. The world of tomorrow echoed, but she felt strangely undone. No more chorus to compose in silence. Her movements were a swirling shuffle, directing her back home to her own self-figured struggles, all concealed in her quest for a dimming spotlight. She glanced down at her apron, observing a slight brush of grease smeared across fabric merely days old. Turning the corner, she saw Liz in the far distance, worn and weathered under the diner's glow, and just for a breath, concern resurfaced, rising from the remnants long buried. In that moment, an unwavering bond flared from the anonymity of struggle. Their eyes briefly met, the connection tinged with both past weight and unspoken kindness. "Don't you step on me, Joan," Liz's voice resonated in the air. The stupid statement lodged somewhere deep, a simple plea capable of toppling the granite mask. And suddenly it struck her, a solitary truth, a continuous refrain from the past years that she no longer had to wear. She could simply vanish. From that decision, voluntary service unfolded, acted unseen, tossing aside layers, releasing grip over shadows. And with it, like the quiet smile of bruised kindness, she answered, not with comfort, but with the lingering essence of her own release. The city throbbed around her, but the echo remained, a figuring sketch in shadows, enduring without applause, her legacy left unseen.